Okay, so I guess you already heard my name, so I don't need to introduce myself. I'm going to give you a little introduction into the tutorials here. After that, it would be great if you could all go to the stairs and make a conference picture. And I would also announce already now to clarify that these the phone boxes, the cardboards, they are for you. So if somebody doesn't have one, I think we have some more around, and just feel free to take them with you and enjoy NOMAD and more videos at home. Okay. So as said, or as the original title was all about the NOMAD, all about the NOMAD Encyclopedia. I'd like to reduce that to the encyclopedia tutorial. And I do the talk from behind to first I would like to thank Matthias for this beautiful excuse you gave me with the proposal deadline. If something doesn't work or is not prepared, it's not my fault, it's the fault of the proposal. And I would also like to thank these three people, because what you see in the tutorials is actually their work. So if you're happy, please thank those three. Let's get a bit more technical about the encyclopedia. You saw a lot about the concepts and what we want to do, and also the process, how we get there. I'd like to show you a few aspects of the internals. So this is kind of the general data flow in the NOMAD laboratory. So the repository existed already before. Now it's also part of the Center of Excellence. You already heard about the parsing. You know the data arrives at the archive. You heard about how to query the archive. And you also already got the introduction into the analytics, all these tools developed by NOMAD. One of them is the encyclopedia. And what we do, just summing up what Claudia already said, is from the raw calculation-oriented, code-dependent data, in the first step, we go to the code-independent data. And what we do in encyclopedia is we change the view from a calculation-oriented view to a materials-oriented view. Okay? Then inside the encyclopedia, we have four main, I call it right away, services, which is first the processing of the data in our own database, and then an API providing this data to the outside, and a graphical user interface. We can access both the API and the GUI, and this is what we're going to talk about now. What we do not do in the tutorial, but which is already prepared, is that you can download and run these four services in four independent containers. If you, for example, have your own archive, you just get all the software and run it locally. If you have a database server somewhere, you just continue using this database service. It's independent. Just make the database in there, and you're done. If you want to do some development work, for example, extending the GUI, then you can also get all these four things, or in an easier version, just one virtual machine where everything runs in, and you develop on this side, and you don't touch the rest, but you have everything. So in the tutorial is prepared to have several steps. So we start nice and easy with the graphical user interface, exactly what you saw, what Claudia presented, where you can explore our database and what we have there in the data. And yeah, also here the idea is that you come together with the developers and that you can ask what's going on there. If you find a bug, we're even happy to hear about this. To be honest. Then a very, very easy way of accessing the API, then accessing the API with Python scripts, then an independent tutorial which shows how you can take one of the pieces that was developed for the encyclopedia and just plug it in somewhere in your own application. In this case, the 3D structure viewer, or general 3D viewer, you see in the graphical user interface. And so that you don't get bored, since these things are very basic, we have some ideas of how you can develop these basic things further for doing a few applications. Okay, so the starting point for the tutorials is really this web page. I think everybody has been there already, no? Somebody who doesn't know the location. This is where you find all the materials for all the tutorials around. And the page is this nomad minus hands-on at GitHub. You'll also find this later than directly on the homepage of the summer school. So you can guess we're in the Wednesday morning session. You'll find some instructions about what you need to do to make the stuff running on your computer or in the labs. So the idea is to have it as simple as possible. We use Jupyter. Is there somebody absolutely not familiar with Jupyter? Okay, so then you can, it's really easy on the computers there. In the last row, is this too small or can you read it? Good? Okay. Here are some instructions how you get Jupyter installed. And very, very important is the last line here. With this, you start a Jupyter service with a little difference in the computer labs. Here, you have to type in Jupyter minus notebook instead of space. So we just fixed an installation. It was a technical problem before, but yeah. So what you get, we'll come back to this later. No. Sorry. So this touchpad. Here we have some extra page about how to use the authentication or this central Nomad login you've already seen in the analytics tools from the API. So here you can look up the stuff, and also how to log out, because this is less obvious from an API where it's easy to log in. And then we get to the specific tutorials for the API, for the visualization, and the exercises are just some ideas what you can do. So this is left to you for exploring. But now we go to the to the actual application. So I think you've seen this. So this is now live. You saw many options already in Claudia's talk. So what I would like to do is just finding one specific thing you need later for the exercises, which is an aluminum oxide. So you define your search criteria, you search. Oh. Pardon? No. I'm not sure. Maybe there is no. Oh, yeah. Oh, cool. Good. So what you get is a list of results. You referred to this in your talk. We would like to see this one because, let's say, this has the highest number of calculations, so maybe there's something interesting to find. Actually, the interesting thing to find here, if you go to the electronic structure, is that here you have several calculations, and all with a DOS, usually slightly different. So this could be, for example, a starting point in for examining what's the difference here, what's happening, why do we have all these different, slightly different DOSes from VASP. And this is something the exercises, which shows up in the exercises. So I wanted to show you this part here first that you relate to this concrete example. Okay. I said then the next point was the easiest way to use the API is just using a web browser. So here you see you have the basic URL for the API. And here you have the API documentation. So this is the full specification of the API. Here you see, for example, you want to do the authentication. This has the endpoint. This has the endpoint SAML. Before we saw what the base is. So you can just go here. Type in your endpoint, and you're going to be forwarded, and so on and so on. So all the options. No. There. No? What was it? Okay. So all the options you get here, for example, for sending, for retrieving a certain material with these endpoints and so on and so on, you can type in here. So that's possible, that's quick, that's easy, but it won't help you a lot with data analysis. If you want to analyze your data, you can use whatever tool that can access this API. And for the tutorial, we decided to do this with Jupyter. So once you have Jupyter started, you get something like this. We have prepared this IPython notebook where, again, just in case you only want to use this, you get all the information for logging in. And further down, you get input cells. And those, instead of going to the Python console, executing files or whatever, you have all this here. You can say, okay, now I have very basic input. I want to execute this. The cell is executed. We jump to the next one. Here, we jump to the next one. And what we see here, the API definition, when you look it up, you see that there's a status code, if everything's fine or not. So in this code line, in this part of the code here, we check the status code, and this is some output. And the output is given here after the evaluation of the cell. And then you can check the content, and so on and so on. So you can walk through this. It gives you in the comment some ideas of what you're doing here, what you could do. You can change the parameters, of course. So here in this notebook, you can just change whatever you want. You can extend it. So I think there's no point in walking through everything now, but this is later than for the tutorial. If you prefer working in plain Python or something, you can just copy the code from here, make your own Python script, and execute it. It will work exactly the same way. The viewer tutorial, so I'm a bit lost. No. So the structure visualization part is very well explained here on the whole in this page. So for this you need to download this zip file, you uninstall it, and basically you just open index.html and you see what you can do there. More interesting, definitely, are the exercises. So we saw before this aluminum oxide. And we saw these, or the material is defined by its formula and the space group. This defines one specific material. And I mean, there are more criteria to this. We can talk about this if somebody is interested. We saw that there are many DOS. And if you want to compare them, it would make sense, for example, to get all the DOS data and print it. How to get DOS and print, you see in the API tutorial. Print it in a way so that you can start comparing. No matter if you side by side or in one graph. So this is a very simple but nice visualization case where you bring in the human side of how you would solve this. The second part, in the 3D viewer example, has kind of static data, so you can use the viewer for some data sets in there. But what happens if you say, okay, I found in the Encyclopedia graphical user interface this material with specific ID, and I would like to see this, or I would like to use this data. So what we have is some JavaScript code prepared to extend it, and you can fit the things together so that you can see basically any material in this viewer using the Encyclopedia API. Good. So this would be the outline for the tutorial. We have about an hour time, which is not so much, but I said you're free to do whatever part you're interested in, or just play with the encyclopedia after we take a picture. Good. We can go taking a picture.